us to go back to Saudi Arabia. And he told us that we shouldn't be here and to get out of his country. I just want to say thank you to the people who put their life on the line for me, because they didn't even know me. And they lost their lives because of me and my friend and the way we looked.
They didn't lose their lives because of her. That was 16-year-old Muslim detainee Mingam tearfully recounting the violence that ensued after she and a friend was wearing a hijab. They were verbally attacked on a train in Portland, Oregon Friday by a known white supremacist. 3 men who tried to stop his anti-Muslim slurs were stabbed by the knife-wielding racist. 2 were killed and the 3rd was severely injured.
A suspect was on the train and he was yelling and ranting and raving a lot of different things, including what would be characterized as hate speech or biased language. In the midst of his ranting and raving, some people approached him, appeared to try to intervene with his behavior, and some of the people that he was yelling at, they were attacked viciously by the suspect, resulting in the 2 deaths and 1 injury.
53-year-old Rick Best was an Army veteran and a father. He dabbled in local politics and was working as a technician. Taliesin Manshi, 23, recently graduated with a degree in economics. 21-year-old Micah Fletcher, a poet, was seriously injured in the assault. The knife missed his jugular by 1 millimeter, according to his mother. The alleged killer, Jeremy Christian, is facing aggravated murder charges and attempted murder, as well as hate crime charges. He's locally known as a right-wing extremist and white supremacist whose hate-spewing vitriol appears on his Facebook page and in rallies such as this one held in April. Memorial services were held this weekend for the 2 heroes who were killed trying to stop Christian's bigoted rant. And President Trump weighed in on the incident, finally, 3 days after the attack, with this tweet. The violent attacks on Portland on Friday are unacceptable. The victims were standing up to hate and intolerance. Our prayers are with them. But the mayor of Portland, Oregon said that wasn't enough and blamed the attack on the current political climate where he said hate-filled rhetoric can lead to hate-filled violence.
We need more than thoughts and prayers right now. We need action and we need leadership. And we need the people in Washington, D.C., and the people here in Oregon, and the people at the local level to step up and show through action that they condemn bigotry and hatred and xenophobia and violence.
Joining us on Skype from Portland, Oregon is Seemab Husseini, a member of the Council on American Islamic Relations, Oregon Ad Hoc Committee. How are you, Mr. Husseini?
We're doing well.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, you know, I believe that the mayor raises an excellent point. We've clearly seen a presidential candidacy that started and was rooted in hate and has continued throughout that vein, I believe, in terms of his stint in office. What impact do you believe has this presidency's sort of aura led to in terms of filtering down to violence in the streets?
Well, Trump has had a tone. I mean, there has been rhetoric that had been built prior to the campaign, during the campaign. So he has, it cannot outweigh the years of anti-Islamic rhetoric and policy proposals that have been in place. You know, we look forward to the opportunity that after his Saudi visit, that he softened his tone in Islam, especially having words of partnership with the Islamic community. So we look forward to seeing a transition since his words offer it currently. But again, as I said, it cannot outweigh the years of anti-Islamic rhetoric and policy proposals, including the failed Muslim ban that has gone, I think, the 3rd time in the last week.
What do you think about the 3 days that it took for him to even weigh in on this issue? Do you think that that was too much of a delay, or do you think that that was sufficient?
You know, our primary focus has been in the last 3 days, not necessarily on the political rhetoric, but focusing on the victims, Taliesin, Ricky, and Micah, who has barely come through surviving, and is, from what I understand, a person with great sense of humor, including focusing on the needs of the two young ladies as well. So primarily our focus as a community has been rooted in the success of the 3 surviving victims of this ordeal.
And also, what are some of the plans in your community then to heal from this attack? What sort of actions are you taking to bring the community together?
Well, there is a need for people to come to become more trauma informed. SAMHSA has a definition for it where it's trauma-specific interventions that address the consequences and facilitate healing. So focusing on trying to get their needs addressed, including there's been plenty of community gathering regarding raising funds for these victims, surviving and those that have left, with Taliesin and Ricky Best. So our efforts have been to make sure that we respect the family's space and their wishes for privacy, but still make sure that we're able to pool a lot of these resources and hopefully maintain contact with them as they request, and make sure that they're receiving contact with these resources that'll help them fund the opportunities that they're going to be running into in the very near future regarding recovery, moving on, whatever we can. But it's primarily focusing on what we can provide as a community, what we've pulled together so far successfully as a community here in Portland and Greater Oregon.
That's wonderful. I'm sure that that help is certainly well needed and really appreciated. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
And joining us from our Washington, D.C. studio is our panel, Ron Busby, the President and CEO of the U.S. Black Chambers, and Brandon Cooper, Chairman of Prince George's County Republican Party. So, what do you all think about this particular issue in terms of what we saw in Portland, that sort of violence? Is that something that is just by happenstance, or do you see any specific connection to the entire sort of, overreaching, type of feeling that we have in this country since we have this particular presidential election?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of and the story really relates around the fact that is this a hate crime or not? And that's where we are. And to me, that's ironic. If you look at the history of the gentleman, if you look at the act that was actually acted upon, I think there's nothing to question in reference to not this was a hate crime. I definitely think this was a hate crime. And the unfortunate part is we aren't talking about the 2 victims. And at the end of the day, even if he's convicted and he's put into prison, he'll be back with folk that think just like him, back in prison where we're actually developing the new groups of hate crimes. Unfortunately, you have an individual, 2 individuals that are trying to protect a young lady, and they end up losing their lives. I think a lot of this has to do with what is now coming out of this administration in reference to hate, in reference to, just the bigotry. When your top person of the United States is talking about banning Muslims, it perpetrates throughout the rest of the citizens in the country.
Absolutely. And do you think it's a sort of coincidence that right after this particular president was elected, we did see a spike in this country in hate crimes? We did see a spike in this country in the number of reported incidents of bullying in schools across the country. Do you think that's just something that was coincidental, or do you think it really is some sort of specific relationship?
No, definitely. The political climate we have right now, as often happens, Southern Poverty Law Center said that after most elections, not just this one, after most elections, there's a spike in hate because of how divisive our politics have become. But I think, as you said, looking at the history of the man, it's convenient and easy if you're trying to make a political point to link this just to President Trump. I definitely, in my experiences, think this issue is beyond one president. This is America we live in. Looking at the history of the man, you said that he was a right-wing person. He was a Bernie Sanders supporter. Let's be honest. On his Facebook post, he said that he did not support Trump. He voted for Bernie Sanders. And so I don't think racism is isolated to one candidate or one party. This is an issue that America's been dealing with for a while. I've done campaigns in Kentucky, and I'll tell you that there's some Democrats who are just as racist as some of the Republicans. But I definitely think, as you mentioned, that the president, his rhetoric during the campaign, as most candidates are, was reckless. But I think, as your panelists or your guest said earlier, his first trip foreign abroad was to the holiest Muslim country, Saudi Arabia. He was welcomed by them. It was his
That's
first
the holiest Muslim country.
I'm saying the holiest sites. I'm saying again. What I mentioned again was the holiest sites in Muslim. I'm saying the two holiest sites, and they all do Mecca. They go to Mecca, which is Saudi. That's what I was saying. So as far as the holiest sites are housed in Saudi Arabia, he was meted by, that's not them, but about 9 other Middle Eastern countries. He is, as your panelist just said, is making a change, hopefully, towards a softening his tone and making the target towards the radical extremists that he's been talking about, which the Muslim countries that he spoke to also agreed upon. But definitely his campaign rhetoric is adding, I won't say it created, but it's adding to the divisive political culture we have in this country, for sure.
I think the other question that we're not really dealing with is if he had been an African American. I don't even think that he would have the opportunity to have a trial. With the way that police officers are taking out black men, with just the thought that they may be in fear of their lives. This is a gentleman that has a proven track record of hate, was already a felon, was carrying a concealed weapon, killed 2 people, and now has the opportunity to go face a jury of his peers. In our community of African Americans, we would not have even been given that luxury of being able to now to go to court. I believe that if that had been a black man, we would not be having these conversations. We'd be talking about another police officer that had shot someone without a trial. In this case, we know that this guy has a history of hate, and now we're talking about, is this a hate crime or not? I just think that's a little bit of irony of having this conversation.
Absolutely. Well, you know, we have a hard time with really calling racism, hate, and white supremacy in this country. And this is just one other example of it.
A peaceful protest turned deadly. 37-year-old black man was shot and killed by Baton Rouge police. His hands are in the air, and you still get shot by the cops.
Oh my God, please don't tell me he's dead.
We're not gonna let hate define us.
Race is a big part of this.
If truly all lives matter, then all lives need to matter equally.
What we require is action. What we require is accountability. We understand that black lives do matter, and we will keep focused on this issue.
NewsOne Now, every weekday morning at 7 on TV1.